Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Real Freedom Show, where we talk about building time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. Specifically, everybody has a different background that they come from. And so a lot of people have come from the education background and made successful real estate investors because they're willing to learn, they're willing to apply that knowledge, and then they also have a teacher's heart to help others. So that's the guests that we have today. We've got Ken and Rachael Wick here. Quick background about them. I will say Minnesota natives. We also want to plug other people in Minnesota. 50 plus years combined of education experience between both of you, having masters of educational technology degrees. And so you've served in Minnesota schools for a long time, and we'll talk more about that. Real estate background, investing in multifamily, single family properties, and also real estate syndications, which we'll discuss there. You also give back, and so you partnered with World Vision with their Doors to Donate program, sponsoring children for every door that you own, which is awesome. Would love to chat a little bit more about that. And you have 6 kids, so you're busy being in their lives as well. And so welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Well, we're grateful to be here, Mike, and thank you to you and thank you to your viewers. We hope to add some good value today.
Obviously, I gave the Cliff Notes version, but just talk about your background, being exposed to real estate, diving deeper into real estate, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So we are both educators. I spent 30 years in public education as a social studies teacher and computer teacher, then IT director for a school district my last 11 years. As you mentioned, we both have degrees in information technology. Rachel was an art teacher in K-12 settings for 25 years. So actually it's about 55 total years.
It's a lot.
It's like a whole lifetime of teaching. That's for sure. So during the time when our children were little, back in the early 2000s, that's when we first got into residential rental real estate. We've had rental property since 2003, 2004, mostly in Minnesota near our hometown here in Mankato. And
yeah, we thought we would kind of supplement our educational salaries with some rental properties and hopefully, kind of build that up. And so by the time the kids got college age, we would have something kind of built for them. So that's where that began. Let's see, we started with a triplex and a duplex. And for those of you that might be older and listening, the Carleton Sheets educational program on creative financing was the intro into our creative financing and picking up properties at either a discount or using creative techniques, let's say, to do that. And that started off, I think I was 33 when we started.
Right.
Yeah, we picked up a triplex and a duplex all in one summer, and then did a lot of renovating. We learned the ins and outs.
So you did that? What you financed that one through creative financing for both of those properties?
Yeah, and since then we've done several more. We actually almost always, and this is just a tip to your viewers, anything you go to purchase, whether it's your personal home or rental real estate, ask if they can do a seller carryback. I think the last 5 properties we've gotten a seller carryback. So typically you have to go in and put down 20% or somewhere around that. At the time, that's what it was. And every property, each owner, if you're willing to give a little bit more, if you don't undercut, you're willing to give a little bit more and set the right terms, you actually can pay less per month plus pay less upfront. And that's what we did. So each seller did a 10% carryback. We made small payments per month for a set amount of time, usually a 3-year period. And then we had a balloon. And by then you've usually renovated the property, you've upped the value, you're ready to refinance, or you're ready to do a payout.
Yeah. And I know, in the last particularly year to 12 or to 18 months with interest rates going up, I know that seller financing and creative financing has been a little bit more of a buzz than it was previously back when rates were 2% and 3%. And so at the same time, there's a ton of opportunity there. And what I love in those creative finance conversations is you're trying to create a win-win. Something that works for you, something that works for them. And you don't necessarily always have to involve a bank in the process, or not for the entire part of that piece. And so that's a great way for people to get started. It takes some work to find the right sellers out there and to find the right deal.
Just recently, in the last 4 months, we were working on a 48 unit portfolio, and that owner was willing to entertain that as well. So it doesn't just have to be the small properties, it's the big ones too. So you just have to, this is a mindset shift. Becoming an investor is an entire mindset shift. You have to believe all things are possible, and then you have to ask for all things possible. And let people say no, that's okay. And don't take it as rejection. It's because sometimes somebody's going to say yes, and you're going to be surprised. Yeah. And you're going to be able to do something you couldn't do on your own.
So just so we get a little bit more context. So you've got the triplex. You mentioned the 48 unit. What other states are you invested in? The 48 unit, that's in Iowa. Is that correct?
Yeah. We had a triplex, a duplex, and a single family house here in Minnesota.
Yep.
And in 2000, I exited education in 2016. Was doing some remodeling on our triplex, second term remodeling. Happened to hear on the radio, hey, if you want to learn how to do large multifamily syndications, come to this meeting up in Bloomington, Minnesota, and we'll introduce you to how to do that. So I got home that day from remodeling. Rachel was still teaching, and I said, hey, honey, do you want to go to this meeting? And she said, sure. So we headed to this meeting. To make a long story short, we ended up taking the training from a company out of Boston, Massachusetts, that taught us how all the ins and outs of how to do multifamily underwriting, syndicating, gathering of investors, managing multifamily properties. And when I say multifamily, they're large multifamily. Anything with 5 units or greater is considered commercial property. Mm-hmm. So we had started to look at greater than 5 units. We looked at some units in Des Moines, Iowa. We met some partners in the training program, got connected to them, and actually invested in 3 properties in Las Vegas with them. And that's how we got our start in the multifamily.
Mm-hmm. So we have some properties in Las Vegas, yep. Iowa, Minnesota. Right now, that's where we're at.
In 2019, 2020, we got involved in those properties in Las Vegas. In 2021, we put together a syndication for 48 units in Des Moines, Iowa. Have since ramped up to 238 units total, most of which are in the Des Moines area.
And then we're going to be closing, hopefully in 2 weeks, on another 48 unit.
Awesome. Congratulations. I just was going to quick chime in when you talked about, hearing the seminar, because a lot of people, hear commercials, see ads for different seminars and whatnot. And going back to mindset, you talked about, being open, believing in all things. And I know a lot of people, their first gut response when they hear something like that is, oh, they're trying to get me, right? They're trying to sell me something, which they are. And at the same time, education, investing in education. Now, here I am talking to 2 educators about the power of investing in education. You can go to those seminars and learn some great information, and maybe that one's not the fit for you. Maybe there's other ones out there. And I totally get the coaching program, the mentoring program. There's a lot of bad eggs out there. And yet at the same time, there's a lot of good eggs too. And so it might take a little bit of time to investigate and find the right people that you want to align with. But I know for me, we've spent a lot of money on education over the last 2 years as I've worked more and more with investors. I've learned a lot about different things. There's still a ton that I have yet to learn, but it's being willing, at least at first glance, to be open to the idea of investing in an education or pursuing relationships where there's other educational opportunities to learn and grow, to decide what's going to be that right path for you or the right next step for you.
We cannot say enough about being educated in large multifamily. There is so much to learn. We count it as a second master's degree for us both. So people are not just going to pick this up in a couple of months. There's a lot to learn. And once you learn about acquiring a property, then you have to operate it. And you have to do it well, especially if you have investors. You have an obligation to take care of their needs, the residents' needs, and then the property. So there's just a lot to learn, and we cannot stress enough. Please don't go into this blindly and just pick up a property and then think you're going to operate it like a regular single family home. It's just not the same.
We do. Your current podcast, notwithstanding, we do encourage people to take a formal education. As we encounter people who say, well, I can just pick this up on YouTube or
everything's on YouTube. I could just learn it all myself, right?
That's right. If you like the shotgun approach and like stuff blasted at you a million pieces at a time, then that's your thing.
Yeah.
But if you need a more start to finish A to Z program that makes sense of how to do everything, then we strongly recommend getting an education, because that's what we were doing. We were listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, and there is a lot of good information out there. But unless you have somebody that can string it all together where it makes sense, it's really, in my opinion, it's really difficult to pursue that direction.
And honestly, we were at the point we were working on our triplex, and across the street, an 8-plex got built up, and we're like, man, if we could just pick up an 8-plex like that, whoa, like, how could we ever get the money, and yada, yada, yada. And then we go and take these courses, and they're like, don't buy anything under 100 units. And we're like, no. Sure enough, we have bought a 48-unit complex with $0 out of our pocket. It is possible. However, there's a lot to learn. You got to do it right, and it can fail quickly. So you have to be careful. The rewards are great, but there's also things move quicker. There's a lot more expenses in a large multifamily. Mm-hmm. So you really have to balance your operations well.
And when you have some lean months, you have to have the capital to be able to pull from if you need to. Yep. So I know a lot of investors that I talked to, this last winter in Minnesota was not a great winter. There was a lot of snow and people didn't necessarily plan for that snow plowing budget to go through the roof. I mean, it was like the third largest snowfall total ever in Minnesota's history. Well, guess what? Somebody's got to shovel that snow, and the snowplow people aren't going to be like, hey, I'm sorry that you didn't budget for this. So it's planning for rainy days like that. The other thing I was going to mention is, talking about being responsible for other people's money, because sometimes I hear from people like, oh, just show me how to, get private funding, how to get money from other people. And I think so many times the mindset's incorrect about that. I'm not necessarily now, if it's a bank, it's a different story, right? But when you're looking for people that are investors that are giving you their hard-earned money or their private equity, it's a responsibility conversation. I'm being a steward of your money. I'm being responsible to take it, do something great with it so that you want to continue to allow me to use that. And so I kind of want to challenge the notion that a lot of people have is just teach me how to get people's money, how to get private money versus being responsible for it and being a good steward of that. So talk about that as you guys go in terms of structuring your deals and finding private money.
Yeah. So really a lot of this backtracks into how do you look at a property when it comes up for sale? How do you do your due diligence? How do you check things like what's the rent roll? What are the rents and the comparables in the area? Show me the T12. Show me the expenses and the income. How can I plug that into our underwriting, or how can we plug that into our underwriting and make the deal make sense? Is there room to increase the rents? Are there improvements that can be made? Can we force the appreciation on the property by doing renovations? All those things come into play far before you ever ask anybody for money. Mm-hmm. Because at the point that you have your deal analyzed, and yes, oh, by the way, it does make sense, and we can't get a loan, and this looks like a good property, and you've done the underwriting and the due diligence, at that point, you start to become the teacher again. You start to talk to people and say, hey, you know what? I got this great property. Here's what the numbers look like. I can project this % return for you if you invest this amount of money. Let me tell you how this works. It's a syndication. People come into a syndication, they invest their money, and you go through all the steps and explain that to people. And we really, Rachel likes to say, we really spend approximately 1 hour, a minimum of 1 hour per investor doing teaching and explaining, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're very particular about the properties that we pick because number one, we try and stay in the secondary markets of large metros. We start there. If we have an investor from California, oftentimes their they just fly over Iowa. Like if Iowa's our main market, they don't understand much about Iowa. They all think that there's cornfields, right? Cornfields. So it's up to us to make sure they understand why it's such a great Midwest location. And we're probably not going to go find smaller towns to do that in. We are just going to find suburbs of the metro or in the metro or somewhere near an airport. We like to find places near airports so investors can fly in, see the property. I mean, who doesn't want to see a property they're a part of, you know? It's a really enriching experience when you get to take someone on site. But we are pretty particular, pitched roofs, the whole snow situation, like you're saying. We like to invest in the Midwest. So we make sure typically we find roofs that are pitched so the snow will slide off of them instead of pooling on a flat roof. Age-wise, we try and make sure that we are, we've changed this just recently a little bit, but typically we're looking in the 80s to 90s properties.
And newer.
Yep, and newer. And we like garden style because people love community. We purchased one complex just because it had a beautiful middle grassy area that people could come together. Building community within the residents is one of our big goals as well.
Well, and what I love about everybody has their own kind of niche is that's the cool part about real estate. And so when you're looking to invest with people, it's finding people that align with that. I mean, there's some people that only want to invest in major metro areas. But guess what? Somebody also needs to own the buildings in the secondary markets as well. And some people want to invest in this state and some people want to invest in that state. And so if you're out there looking to invest, it does take a little bit of networking to find the people that are the right fit, but you guys have a niche and you stick with it and you've gotten better at it. The pitched roof thing probably either came from advice from somebody else or something you experienced the hard way, and you evolve and you learn and you get better.
Exactly.
That's true. And the more time you spend in the market, the more familiar you become with the market, the types of properties that are there, the whole culture of the area, what kind of industries and job opportunities there are for people, what they have for people to do for recreation. So that's been really key for us too. We spend a lot of time in the Des Moines area and the Des Moines market. Not that we don't love Minnesota, but we have some friends and partners that work down there. So that's helped us become more familiar and more have a better eye for properties in that area.
And, being nearby doesn't have to be in your own backyard, but, same thing for me as I work with investors out of state in different markets of Minnesota. I have a little bit better understanding of some of the small towns or mid-sized towns because I live here and I know, and same thing with Des Moines. It's a little ways away, but it's not really that far away. You can definitely have a great understanding of it versus, a small town of the same size in California. You guys don't have as much of a clue unless you have somebody that's boots on the ground or close to boots on the ground in that area that can understand the dynamics of the city and the housing market.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit then about the syndication piece for you, because I know a lot of people are curious to learn as you continue to naturally scale up. Well, let's maybe talk about that first, scaling up. I was at a lunch today and had a conversation with an investor talking about scaling up because some people started only investing in small single family properties or maybe duplexes. Maybe that turns into fourplexes or you get into the small commercial. And then maybe you move up to the 48 units or the syndication. So kind of talk about that scaling up piece and then into the syndications.
Sure.
Okay, well, so like we said, we started pretty much, the Lord blessed us with the first triplex, which helped us understand like apartment style property management. Let's say we start there. And then, because, single family houses are a little bit different in how they operate and the mechanicals. And then when we hit our first 36 unit,
yes,
the first one was a 36 unit that we came on board as like junior members of the management team of the GP General Partnership, where we got to learn a lot. And this will be one thing we'll recommend to those of you that are interested in going to these levels. You will need to come under someone, typically first, almost like an apprenticeship, like we used to have teachers. Well, it's the same thing in the syndication world. A lender will not allow you to operate a commercial property without somebody with more experience. So you'll typically learn for a year or two under some other operators, and then being on that management team for that amount of time, a lender will accept you as being able to operate one yourself. So just know that it takes a couple of years, but you need to, get on the management team. So we did that, 36 units in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. It was almost like a flip. We did a 15-month turn. And then our partners who live in Henderson actually picked up a few. They just kind of kept picking up 22, 24, another 36, all in the same 2-block radius. And we kept joining them, and we were growing. We were able to start teaching people and bring alongside some investors. We were learning. And then we started to kind of have the guts to go solo. Out here, we already had all the underwriting experience. We were ready to try it ourselves. It was a little scary. It's always a little scary the first time you go out on your own. But we got a deal accepted in Ankeny, Iowa. And then we asked our partners who we'd partnered with out in Las Vegas if they wanted to join us, except we will operate this one because we're so close. And then and they operate the ones out there. So it's worked really well as a good partnership.
And to your question about syndication, each of the properties that we invested in with our biggest partners that they invested here in Iowa, they were all syndications, meaning a group of people come together. Each person contributes a certain dollar amount to the down payment money, the earnest money, and the closing costs to be able to be a part of the syndication or part of the purchase. Some people are considered general partners, and your audience, maybe they know this, and I apologize if they do. The general partnership group is the group that manages the property. They'll hire a property manager. They'll oversee the bank accounts. They'll work with contractors to get renovations done. And then you have another group of people in the syndication called limited partners. And they're basically cash contributors. They put cash into the syndication, and in return, they get a return. Sometimes it's paid on a monthly basis or quarterly, or even an annual basis with some syndications. All of this is laid out in an SEC-approved document so that all people on both sides of the fence, the limited partners, the general partners, all know who is responsible for what and what they're expected to get out of the syndication.
And basically, for those that don't know, the limited partners are passive investors. They have come to realize they don't want to go buy a single family home. They'd rather invest. Oftentimes it's $50,000 is the minimum investment in these. They invest, they often make near double their money throughout the whole hold of the syndication that they're participating in, but they don't have to do any work. So all the work is done by the GP or the general partnership.
I mean, kind of the general rule of thumb or a general guide you hear from people is, double your money in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever that is. But that's a good way to summarize the returns in a clean and easy way to understand. But then going back to kind of what we chatted about earlier, the responsibility of the money, you have to sit face to face or Zoom to Zoom or phone call or email with these people and say, here's how it's performed. And I think that's the thing that sometimes people don't fully wrap their head around is I have to sit in front of you. We just did an investor meeting last night with our investor, and you got to have a call and say, here's, what's happened that went as expected. Here's what's happened that didn't go as expected. And what are we going to do? And then, in this call too, we were talking about a new investment that we had together. And so that's where it can grow, but you've got to, it's a relationship. It's not just, hey, I'm setting up for an auto deduct with my bank. And now they take my money once a month. It's a responsibility conversation of I'm taking your money and I'm responsible for it to do something that we've projected.
Yeah. And you become, if any of your people are looking to do this, they become a business owner. So this creates a business plan. So each property is its own LLC, and you have to have a business plan how to grow the value of that property. And then you enact that plan. And there's always going to be unforeseeable. So you try and foresee every potential unforeseeable that could possibly come, and you front end load these things. So you always make sure you are building up a large pool of reserves, because you just have to assume something's going to happen. If you do that, then something probably won't happen. So if you anticipate the worst happening and you have a nice pool of money, nothing will probably happen. However, the problem is when you don't have enough of that and you don't think that far in advance and you don't front end load these during the hold, then usually something happens and it can become a problem. So that would be an advice. If you're looking for an operator, make sure that they have adequate reserves in a syndication as they're setting it up when you look at it.
One of the other topics I want to touch on quick before we go, just because you guys have firsthand experience here, talking about cost segregation studies. So we had Jody Nielsen on, and she talked about cost segregation studies, and it was actually through you that we were introduced. And so she had a chance to share, from her experience, obviously, as the person, helping to execute this cost segregation study, the benefits and the value of that. But for you guys, I want to hear your perspective on how it's impacted you as an investors using a cost segregation study and using Jody specifically, and what that's meant for your guys' business and your growth.
Those are great questions. Not to belabor the point, but yes, you're correct. I used Jody and her company, Cost Segregation Services, Inc., to do cost segregation studies on 3 of our properties, actually a triplex here and 2 of the large multifamilies. And what that does, in a nutshell, a cost segregation study allows you to take your depreciation up front instead of spreading it out over 27 and a half years. So what that does is that allows your investors to get a piece of paper called a K1 at tax time that says, here's your percentage of the property, the multifamily property's depreciation that you can deduct off of your taxes because you're an investor in that property. And it's oftentimes quite a bit of money that investors can deduct from their taxes. And the nice thing is, if you can't deduct that entire amount in 1 year, it rolls over, continues to roll over until the entire amount is deducted, however long that takes.
So bonus depreciation. So Trump had enacted the ability to take upfront bonus depreciation all in year 1 on a property. It is currently sunsetting out, and this year we get to take 80% instead of 100% of upfront bonus depreciation. So I'm going to give an example. We are purchasing a property, 2 weeks, we'll be closing on it. We'll call Jody. We'll say, hey, Jody, can you come out to the property? She's going to go through it, and she's going to break down what's on a 5-year depreciation, like carpet. And she's going to break down all the materials in the property into categories. Oftentimes that's never done. So you actually don't get to realize all the depreciation on the objects that you have in your property. So with that study, then she goes back and they have the engineering group does an amazing job putting this very comprehensively together for the IRS. We then submit it to our accountant, and then he will spread that depreciation across all of the investors or owners within the property, unless they have invested with an IRA or a 401k. Those people cannot participate in that depreciation because those are separate entities outside of the personal, they can't get a K1 like we can. So then that filters down to your personal tax return. Mm-hmm. And for an example, so on this one, I think we've got it down to if somebody puts in $50,000, they're going to get like a $24,000 paper loss year 1. So anybody that has other passive income real estate, or they're a real estate professional, will be able to take all of those losses, boom, that year 1
against their income,
which allows them to then hopefully go and invest in something else. Time use of money. So it's just you get the depreciation up front. It's not that, like, if you were to sell next year, we'd have to, they've taken the depreciation for future years, so you have to pay some of that back. So you have to factor that into your plan. So plan accordingly for those of you that are thinking on using one when you're going to sell, and have that appropriately lined out in your business plan.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your personal experience, because I know it's one thing to hear from her who works in the company, but to hear your experience in utilizing it is good. And for people out there that haven't heard of cost segregations, it's worth looking into because they do a free analysis.
I will tell you one thing we forgot to say is it's actually brought us return investors because of they did not realize how much they would be able to take off of their personal income taxes because of the study being utilized.
One of whom was my brother, who was reluctant to get into our first 3 deals. He got into the fourth one, then he got his K1, then he got his tax return, and he called me and he said, Kenneth, when's the next one? Because he wanted to reinvest to take advantage of that cost seg.
And one of our neighbors, same thing. She was like, I did not realize this would save me so much money. And I was like, I know the power of this is amazing. People just don't know what they don't know. That's why so much education is needed.
Yeah. Before we close here, going back to being in education and looking at this as a way to create a little bit of side income, talk about what this investing in real estate and continuing to scale up and grow up, what this has done for you guys, for you and your family and your life versus being teachers. Phenomenal opportunity. You know, if I didn't go into business, I was going to go into elementary education. So, you know, I love having a teacher's heart, but just talk about what investing in real estate has kind of meant to you guys in your lives over the last dozen years or so.
Us being educators is a calling. People aren't doing it because they're making money hand over fist. It's a calling. We definitely prayed and asked the Lord when we were exiting education to do this. You know, Lord, please still use us in this way. And again, we try and bring integrity. We try and help the residents build community. We try and give back actually to housing in the communities of the properties. So we are trying to do multiple things that also shares our heart and our call, because our call is people. And then also continue to help newer investors understand how they can help supplement their family's income with something like this and not be living paycheck to paycheck just by utilizing a few creative financing techniques, you know, with what they already have. God always kind of says that. Use what you already have. And you're kind of surprised what you already have. You just don't realize how you can use it. One of our 23-year-old just became a landlord. We already have one that is starting to follow in the footsteps. And our other ones are realizing, hey, I'm spending 40% of my income to income taxes. How can I stop this? And we're like, well, let us tell you.
The family limited partners, right? Your guys are going to have an entity where you guys are the GPs and your kids are the LPs. There you go. Well,
they probably be pretty good capital raisers and GPs themselves. A couple of them were in the military. We're like, so many military people, if they have this option, if they understand they could invest small amounts into a syndication a little bit every year, by the time they actually exit the military, they can have themselves a nice portfolio built up of passive income. You know, there's so many different things.
And then I just kind of reiterate a couple of things that Rachel said. We didn't get into this business necessarily to get rich. We got into this business because we wanted to help people. And from our perspective, this is a people business. You're providing housing, good, clean, safe housing for people who need it. Some of the residents in our apartment complexes, this is their home. They've been there for 15, 18, 20 years. They don't have a house. They're not ever going to move to a house. This is their home. Why not try to help make it a great place to live? So we do, like Rachel said, we do give back. We can't do the doors, donate to 238 specific doors. So instead, we still do that with our local Minnesota doors. We still sponsor 6 children. But for the doors in other parts of the country, we pour back tithing money into housing programs and food programs for people who need those in those communities directly. That's what we want to be about. We love the give back aspect. We've always loved it, and we want to help people.
Yeah, and as we grow, we can give more.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love what you guys are doing. I love that you're doing more than just investing, right? That you really care about people. And there's a lot of people that have been on this podcast where it is more than just looking to make money, right? It's helping people, providing great housing. We know there's lots of poor landlords out there, poorly run properties out there. That was one of my second property that I got was my brother-in-law was looking for, he had a bad landlord. I crunched some numbers and I was like, I think we can make this work if with him paying the same amount of rent. And that's what allowed us to make the leap on purchasing a property that we rented out to him and somebody else's because we wanted to help people. And so you guys are doing that. For people that want to learn more about you guys and what you're doing or reach out or maybe, learn more about syndications, how can they do that?
So the best way is to send us an email, contact@higherpointinvesting.com. Contact@higherpointinvesting.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ken and Rachael, for coming on and sharing your wisdom, and best of luck to you guys as you continue to grow in the future.
Thank you, and you too.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for having us.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang around? Well, real estate agents, I'm excited to increase your 5 with you. We're launching the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you get educated and connect with others to build your real estate investing journey and also to help you along the way as you're working with real estate investors. So come check it out on our website, realfreedom.com. Go to the store. We have a membership, we have a mastermind group and private coaching to help you stay accountable to your real estate investing goals and to make sure that you connect with like-minded people to accelerate your progress and to cheer you on along the way. Check it out, realfreedom.com. Click on the store.